How's it going, Critter Family? I hope you all are doing well. We are going over a suggestion today by Mr. Barry Hook. This is from his channel, Barry Hook 2. Why we like, in parentheses, to have incidents during training. So he is a big advocate for using rubber bits that you don't need to use, as he says, a lump of iron in their mouth. You don't need to scream at him, smack him, hit him, use a whip or anything. Just be kind to the horse. So we're going to go over his video in large comparison to Tara and how she might do things. There's a vast difference between how the two interact with horses, or at least the horses that they work with. If you hear any crazy noises, it's the little babies. I have the two foster kittens still hanging out with me, and they're getting into all sorts of nonsense and having play fights all over the place, so don't mind them. So we're going to get right into the video. It would be best to watch from 8:31 on, so we're going to get into it. As always, using this under Fair Use Act for education, criticism, just giving my point of view, and giving some commentary on this. So if you want to support him, please go support Barry Hook. If you want to support myself, then I absolutely appreciate it. We are at 900 subscribers. I cannot believe it, and I thank you all so very much for that. So let's get started. So first thing I want to say, just my own personal preference is, I'm just going to get this out of the way. Personally, I don't like harnesses that require the croup. I just think it's just pulls too much on the tailbone and the spine and whatnot. They do have spider webbing that works for other harnesses that keeps the breeching in place. I don't like, even using rubber bits. If you are going to use a bit, then, soft rubber bit. Is probably your best option. I just don't like anything in the mouth, period. And by having all control on this horse's mouth, I'm not saying that he's hard-handed or heavy-handed. That's just me. So that's, everybody knows I don't like bits, even rubber bits. So that's the one time I'm going to mention it. I'm not going to keep harping on it, because he is as light as he can be on his hands. I also don't really like having all this on the horse's face, having this horse, they generally have a collar, a regular collar around their neck, and they have what they call the head collar or a head halter, and then they have the bridle with the blinkers or the blinders. So if you're going to have this, I don't think the horse needs the regular halter on as well as the bridle. If you're going to have if you have the neck collar on, then you can, when you bring your horse back into the yard, you hook him up on the neck collar, take off the bridle, then you can put the halter back on, hook the chain back or whatever your tie back onto the halter. That's just me. I don't like having I wouldn't want a bunch of this all over my face. I don't think the horse, if they could speak, I don't think that they would appreciate that either. So that's just me. That's just my criticism. I'm not saying, anything. I say it equally across the board. So she got a little bit nervous because we have this train coming by. He does have tension on the reins, but it's really not tight. There's still a lot more slack here, which I can appreciate versus how a lot of other people might. They take their horse out and they're just constantly tight and basically using these reins as balance, even from using a carriage. And I agree with them on that you work your way up, from where the horse can reasonably handle, scary things, and you work your way up so that you desensitize them. That's the whole point of training. Sorry, I'll stop wiggling the mouse around. That's the whole point of training, in my opinion anyway, especially when driving. If you're going to be using this horse on public roadways, you want them to be able to be safe and keep themselves safe from harm, keep yourself and other people safe from harm. We don't want them bolting and running into traffic and hurting someone, or obviously themselves. So that, anytime you have even with dogs, I love it. Anytime we have a challenge, and I say that with quotation marks, that people see it as a challenge, I say, yeah, let's do it. Let's work on that. If your horse spooks to your horse, your dog, whatever animal you're working with, if they spook to, a noise like that from a truck, then I would park them, in an area where we can be stationary, go park in a little area where you can just stand there while there's trucks, you know, a distance away, and slowly get them used to that, and then have them be able to go out on the street and this and that. But she seems, I mean, I'm saying this horse is a she, I think. But they seem pretty, you know, they seem very confident. As he says, he always likes the horse to be safe, confident, and happy. This horse looks very safe and confident. And fairly comfortable for, I mean, I don't think any animal is going to be happy having to pull a cart behind them and, you know, be strapped and go, you know, doing miles. Just like no horse really necessarily is happy about having a rider on their back. I mean, they're as content as they can be. But I would certainly say safe and confident. So he's practicing again. You even got like these, hey, rainbow flag. We got, you know, little flags and things, you know, which anything above a horse's head can spook them. So you have flags moving, making sound. They're just waving different colors of flags. You know, metal and light can reflect off of that. You have cars coming by. You can have, you know, people on the sidewalk. All these things are really great. That would take time. You know, they would take time to desensitize your horse to, which he does in the yard. He has a whole number of things that he uses to desensitize the horses to before they ever go out on the road. And then they don't just go out in single, you know, they go out with a what he calls a schoolmaster and you know, a trained horse and all sorts of stuff. And I love that, you know, he can laugh about it. He sees them as, you know, he often says that they are a mode of transportation, so they do have to take orders, and I mean, I can understand that. But he still has, you know, respect for them in knowing that they are, you know, they're like young, you know, young kids, they're horses, or they're when he has a young horse, that they're youngsters or they're young minds, and it takes time for them to be able to, you know, learn by experiences of life. So I'm not sure why the horse, you know, might be like turning their head this way a lot. It could be because they're trying to see beyond the blinker or the blinder, you know, out of their eye, looking this way. I don't know. Maybe someone in the comments can let me know. That's also something that I love, the clicking of hooves on the street. It was like ASMR, but that's also one thing that I also worry about too, is that's got to be hard on the joints. And a lot of these shoes do have to be shoed, you know, because otherwise you would just, you know, tear up their hoof. You know, their hoof would be raw and rubbed off in, you know, no time. But that's, I mean, these horses oftentimes learn to go up to 10 or 15 miles, you know, in a trip. And if they're being, you know, I don't know if this is just a little, you know, go around the neighborhood type horse, or if it's going to be used for commercial work. But that's just something that I also think about, you know, maybe there's alternatives to that. Maybe you can have like little boots on them. Again, those would be worn out, but that's also something that I think about. I mean, for me, I would love to have a horse that I could, you know, train to drive and just go, you know, go around on a little adventure, you know, down the country road, but nothing more than that, you know, certainly nothing. I mean, I understand that, you know, shoes are the best thing that lasts the longest, you know, for the, you know, best bang for your buck, I guess, versus having like, you know, booties or like, you know, rubber soles or things for horses. But that's just my opinion. That doesn't have to do anything with Barry Hook alone, just in general. So it looks like she's slowing down. He or she is slowing down, kind of looking at things, kind of assessing the situation. That's nice if the truck was waiting for them. you know, people have common sense around horses. And he's able to do, you know, use his great verbal control. You know, he keeps him or her up. He keeps the horse up. You know, kind of taps with the reins. I mean, I get it. You know, you gotta, you know, you want to keep him going. But as they, you know, they stalled a little bit, and he just says, "Hey, come on, keep going." Clicks, talks to them, gets them through. Versus, as Chips, you know, said that Tara might have said, you know, start screaming at him, "No, bad Bella," and, or using a whip, God forbid, or squeezing her legs, or kicking her, all sorts of things. I can imagine that would happen with a lot of people in a lot of different cases. But I do appreciate that he just says, you know, you can go, you know, you can do it, keep on going. You know, gives them as light of a tap as he did. I can appreciate. I love how he calls them sugar plums. So they did very, very well there. I'm thoroughly confused at how these roads work. But the horse did great there.
So all the prep we've done to bring her downtown, you know, worked out nice.
And he does prepare his horses. He does a lot of work in the yard, you know, and out on smaller streets and building them up. You know, endurance. You know, he doesn't take them out on a 10-mile walk or a round trip the first day. You know, it takes time, and he builds them up to that. He understands that they have their limits. So I can appreciate that. You know, he takes the time it takes, versus just, all right, you're gonna do it.
First time they come in and you ask them to do anything, you know, first time you put your hand on them, you know, you've got to.
This horse is so stinking cute.
Understand them.
They're just trotting along. They're listening to him. Their ears are going back. They're clearly not dead, you know, like dead, broken, numb, and he's not, you know, there's a lot of loose, slack reins here. So, I mean, that's great, especially hearing that it is on a rubber bit. So, you know, I would be at least happy with this, even if it was on a regular, you know, iron metal bit, but it's that much better that it's not, you know, a metal bit. You know, he talks a lot about the traditional riding bits that use like a cantilever or like a leverage, and it has a curb chain, and he says, you know, put that around your arm and just apply a little bit of pressure and it would make you cry. So that's why he's definitely not for the quote-unquote traditional driving bits that people use. You know, he just wants, as he always says, a soft piece of rubber. So hey, if that's how he works, more power to him. You know, I definitely support that over you know, people just tearing their horses' mouths off with these huge long shank metal iron, you know, bits. Just torture. So it looks like it's white and reflective. Gets a little scared. Okay, so he wants to make it easier for the horse, so they move around. Someone was in a hurry. So he didn't get into like an argument or a fight with the horse. He put more pressure, not going to work. So then he turns them around, turns them over, calls them over, and has, you know, gives a little bit more space between the horse and the object. And they went around and they walked just fine. Versus, I imagine, I mean, the girl who was riding her horse by some cows couldn't even do that. You know, she was kicking and screaming and, you know, pulling on her horse's mouth and just having a whole fit. You know, versus just giving a horse time to think about it. You know, he's in traffic, so he has to be in a bit of you know, he's on a bit of a time crunch. You know, but that girl what was her excuse for throwing a fit? You know, she's literally out in a field, on a trail, by a field, a distance away with cows. She wasn't in a hurry. She didn't have vehicles behind her. She's not in the middle of the road. So he has that time crunch behind him, and he still was able to, he didn't even raise his voice, really. You know, he gave him a couple taps, said, hey, come on, let's go. They didn't want to go, moves around, and there they go. Horse didn't even snort. They didn't let's go of the reins. Alright, sorry, we had a little loading issue here. But he dropped the reins, picks them back up. Horse is totally fine. Exactly right.
across the road.
So he understands that,
Three on the back, letting me know what's happening as far as traffic behind.
you know, he understands, he has that, you know, he says we still need to get on with our job, but he understands, and he doesn't push the issue of having them, you know, walk right by it. He says, okay, you're not going to go past it. Okay, we'll go around, we'll give you some space, and then we'll work on that. You know, he understands where the horse is coming from, and that you can't just tell them, oh, that's not something to be afraid of. You're just being stupid, or name calling, or all this nonsense that a lot of people do.
And we went to the other side of the road,
Mm-hmm.
and the man come up the inside on the car. You know, he's in a hurry, I suppose.
Exactly. Although that was kind of rude, but the fact that the guy just like zooms past him, you know, I mean, I get it. Like, you know, there's a horse carriage going particularly slow, of course, as slow as, you know, as fast as they can go, or as reasonable for the horse in a high traffic area. But I don't know, maybe that's a common occurrence here. Either way, I mean, no matter how irritated you are, just understand that it's you know, you're only going to get where you're going like 2 seconds faster. It doesn't really matter. Just slow down. You know, understand that yes, this could be an annoyance to you, but you know, we have a live animal that could get hurt, and it's not there by its own choice. You know, humans are making choices to bring it out. Just chill out. They're still listening to him. They're listening to, you know, things around them, and the horse still seems very confident, very, you know, pretty well content.
Yes, you are, my little baby.
Yeah, I love how he sweet talks him.
Come over, darling. Yes, you are. You little rascal.
He has them dragging some metal behind them. Doesn't seem too bothered by it. Maybe checking it out. Someone in a nice dress. Large trucks going by. Really close by. I'm sure those bottles make a certain noise. Sweaty horse. So that's one thing that, you know, I'm like, I sweat, you know. So they do take, you know, when they go for long rides or long, you know, like a 10 or 15 mile round trip, he does bring water for the horse. He does bring food. They do pour some water over the horse. I mean, horses are going to get sweaty. Like, for me, I like to, I'm not one of those people who has, like, you know, like a horsey career where we're, you know, working. I don't have like a work horse that goes like, well, I don't have a horse, period. I would love to, but even when I do have one, you know, I don't plan to make them like a workhorse or go for 4-mile walks or hikes or anything like that. You know, like go for like maybe an hour or two trail ride, maybe twice a week, maybe once a week. You know, just enjoy them as a horse. So, you know, I sweat a lot, so I feel for the horse. You know, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying he's working them to death, but that's just something else that, you know, I don't like to get that sweaty when I'm working. You can tell they're really working hard. So, you know, I hope that they're taken well care of. Oh, look at that little cute nose. Little Blossom. So yeah, that's Mr. Hook right there. So that was my review of this one video. You know, I think that this is far better. I mean, in comparison to Tara or any other, you know, people to a lot of other people, I'll say, in the horse world, you know, like, this was a very, like, opposite ends of the spectrum. So, either way, everyone is an individual. They can train however they want to. I definitely prefer this to the other option, if there is another option, of just being rough and loud and screaming at your horse and whatnot. Little Blossom here definitely seemed much more comfortable. Very confident horse, you know, confident, safe. You can tell he's put a lot of time and work into it, and he knows how to work with horses to, you know, not make the problem worse. He's able to see that what he's doing isn't working, so he's able to adapt to it and therefore help the horse out. So this is, you know, a sweet little horse, you know, a good little video. I definitely love love the accent, gotta say, of course, and I love that he just sweet talks them, and he gives them that chance. He understands that they are learning. So we'll be covering a couple more of his videos in the future. Of course, Tara as well, you know, and a lot of other doggy suggestions that I am working my way up to. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Again, if you want to support him, please go support him. If you want to support my channel, then I always appreciate that. Go give your little critters some kind of lovin'. Say howdy do for me. And until next time, practice positivity.